So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. My hair's gone absolutely nuts again for whatever reason. Badly need to go to the hairdresser at this stage. Just wanted to do a little piece here with a lot of talk about Morgan Sanson recently. I think maybe I've let my emotions get in my way a small little bit just because of the way things are going, and I've taken a bit out in him at times. And what I wanted to do was just go back and literally just look at the games where he could have been involved. Look at context around why he wasn't involved. Look at maybe who was brought on ahead of him. Look at games where he did come on, what he did do, games he contributed to, and so on. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through the games from last season, from the very first game of last season under Dean Smith to the very last game against Man City. And I'm just going to read through them and talk to them very, very slightly. I'm not going to offer any opinion with regards to, because I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be adding to anything with regards to negativity or anything like that, but I just want to read through it because I think he's somebody that's on everybody's lips at the moment, and it probably doesn't look like he's going to be here past the transfer window, or at least the club look like they're going to move him out, and it looks like he wants to move out of the club as well. So let's just take a look at this. Please don't hate me for it. It's very much something I do to try and go back and look at everything in context. It's maybe beneficial to some people to see stuff about Morgan Sanson that they didn't that maybe they didn't know about previously. For me, I thought it was good, and maybe I look back at it and I went, maybe he is graded in the position that he should be graded within the squad, and also I could probably see situations whereby, maybe he could have got more game time. So let's take a little look at it, and don't kill me. So this is a piece I want to call The Curious Case of Morgan Sanson. So here we have a list of all the games that were played last season, starting off with Watford, ending off with Manchester City. And I categorized them in games where he was injured, games where he did not participate because he was returning from injury, games where he got substitute appearances, how many minutes he got as a substitute appearance, games where he started, how many minutes he got with his start, and so on and so forth. There are some instances here, specifically when we get to the back end of the season, because I want to take it with regards to why he was an unused sub. We will just talk through the substitutions that were made, the subs that were actually brought on at that period of time, to get a feeling as to where he was within the pecking order. Okay, this is not me casting an aspersion on anything. It's just trying to put out, I suppose, a kind of a snapshot of the way the season went. So Morgan Sanson started the season injured. He was injured versus Watford. He was injured versus Newcastle United. He was injured versus Brentford, and he was unable to participate. Against Chelsea, he came back and was on the bench. He did not play because he was returning from injury in this game. He was also in, and then he was further injured for the next 3 games against Everton, Manchester United, and Spurs. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games where he did not play due to injury or reoccurrence of injury. He did not participate against Wolves or Arsenal because he was returning from injury, and then a reoccurrence of that said injury once more. So it didn't really start out very well. From week 1 up until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Up until week 11, he was essentially injured for the first 11 weeks of the season. Dean Smith gets sacked. Steven Gerrard comes in. So Steven Gerrard comes in for the Brighton game, and that's where you can see his face there. Steven Gerrard did not play him. He was coming back from injury. He did not participate, returning from injury, and he was also returning from injury against Crystal Palace. He comes on for 13 minutes salvo against Manchester City in a 2-1 loss. Was that a 2-1 loss or was it a 1-0 loss? I can't remember. Let me just check there because it's important to have this kind of context for it. It was a 2-1 loss. Yes, that was the one where Carney came on and had a chance as well. He was a substitute, came on for the last 13 minutes against Leicester, and he came on for 32 minutes against Liverpool as well. So Leicester game was a 2-1 win. Liverpool game was a 1-0 loss away to Liverpool. He then was subsequently injured against Norwich, could not play. And then he started the next game then against Chelsea, starting 76 minutes against Chelsea. The next game then against Brentford, he was a substitute for 21 minutes. Came on as a substitute, played 21 minutes in that game. And then he got a start against Manchester United, where he played for 68 minutes. Now I'm going to pause, and I'm just going to mention against Manchester United, this was the game whereby he kicked the bottles and he gave away the ball just before he was taken off. And we conceded a goal against Manchester United in that game, in the 2-2 draw against Manchester United. So then he was an unused sub for the next 4 games. Okay, in those games, and this is where I want to talk about the unused sub situations, who was brought on instead of him. In those next 4 games against Everton, he was an unused sub, and the substitutes that we made were Carney Chukwuemeka was brought on in central midfield, Danny Ings was brought on, and Courtney House was brought on late on to be put as a centre half to shore up. We won 1-0 against Everton in this game. Next game then, it was against Leeds. It was the infamous 3-3 draw, whereby nobody decided they wanted to defend for good portions of the first half. And in this game, Carney came on, Ashley Young came on, and Callum Chambers came on in this game, in the 3-3 draw against Leeds. So at this stage, Carney is now being favoured over Sanson for minutes. Potentially because at this stage, they were hoping that Carney would sign a deal. They could see the prospect here. And I think that at this point in the season, that's maybe what the thought process was. Newcastle, against Newcastle, 1-0 loss. Pretty turgid game. Kieran Trippier goal, if I'm not mistaken. In this one, we had Ings came on, Bailey came on, and Carney came on again. Carney was the favourite substitute in midfield in this instance. And then lastly, we have Watford, where we lost 1-0 to Watford in another bad game. So it looks like here against Newcastle United, we lost 1-0, poor performance. Watford, we lost 1-0, poor performance. And in the Watford game, Watkins, Young, and Bailey were the players. Now, Young did come on as a right back in that instance for Matty Cash. Then Brighton and Hove Albion come around again. Morgan Sanson is on the bench. He comes on as a substitute for the last 18 minutes. Against Southampton, he comes on as a substitute for the last 19 minutes. Against Leeds, he comes on as a substitute for the last 19 minutes. All of these games we won. We beat Brighton 2-0. We beat Southampton 4-0. We beat Leeds 3-0. West Ham United, he was an unused sub. The subs brought on were Emi Buendia, Ashley Young, and Leon Bailey. Arsenal, he was an unused sub. In the West Ham game, we lost 2-1. The Arsenal game, we lost 1-0. The substitutes brought on were Bertie, Ings, and Bailey. Wolves, he starts, plays 72 minutes. You guys might remember that game. That was the game whereby Danny Ings didn't start the game. He was a late withdrawal because I think his missus gave birth, and this is the game where Ashley Young, Luca Dean went off injured very early, and Ashley Young came on at left back and he headed that bizarre own goal into the back of his net. But Morgan Sanson played 72 minutes in that game, and I will say I think he was probably one of the more busy players in that game, albeit we didn't play well as a team. He did start, got 72 minutes. He was then an unused sub against Spurs, and in that Spurs game we lost 4-0. Probably the worst. Like, we attacked like mad, but the one, like, we got caught 4 times with long balls up to Harry Kane, and Son just went wild. In this game, Buendia, Young, and Bailey were brought on. He was injured against Leicester. He was injured against Norwich. And then he was an unused sub against Burnley. He was an unused who the subs we brought on that day were Young, Coutinho, and Carney. That Burnley game was the draw, I think. No, it wasn't. It was the 3-1 win against Burnley. He was an unused sub in Liverpool in the 2-1 loss to Liverpool, where we brought on Buendia, Bertrand Traore, and Carney. He was an unused sub against Palace, where we brought on Buendia, Chambers, and Ramsey, and that Palace game was a 1-1 draw. He was an unused sub in the 1-1 draw at Burnley, where we brought on Bertrand Traore, Ings, and Coutinho. And on the last day of the season, he was an unused sub when we brought on Young, Nakamba, and Ings. And Young and Nakamba were very much brought on to try and hold on to our lead at that stage, which we obviously couldn't hold on to. Another little bit of context for those last 5 games here as well. John McGinn was under a lot of pressure prior to those last 5 games. And in that last 5 games, looking back at performances, statistics, and everything, John McGinn had a pretty decent run for those last 5 games. He scored twice, scored once in the home fixture against Burnley, scored once again in the away fixture against Burnley, had a very good game against Man City, and had a decent game against Crystal Palace. Wasn't very good against Liverpool. So in that instance, John McGinn actually did find a purple patch of form, which would have been a detraction to Morgan Sanson getting into the team as well, I would imagine. So I'm not going to comment anymore on Morgan Sanson with regards to what my opinion is in him or anything. But I thought it was very cathartic for me to catalogue this out to see if there was vendettas, if there was anything like that to do with the player. I think it's a very unfortunate situation whereby at times he was injured. I think it's a very unfortunate situation. I think the argument could be made that after the Man United game, when he kicked the bottles and he showed his frustration, that potentially he was reprimanded for those 4 games, but he was on the bench. And in those games, it seems that Gerrard chose to play Carney over him instead, but he was still on the bench. And yes, is there a feeling there that potentially he could have got more minutes as a substitute? There probably is. So from the point of view with regards to Morgan Sanson, I'm not going to speak any more about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. But I think this is important. I think it's important to do it with a lot of players that we have, because if there's a lot of kind of ill feeling, I think, coming out, and there's a lot of talk going on from the club as well. And I let you guys make up your own mind with regards to Morgan Sanson with regards to this. But it looks like injuries, poor form, trying to find out a style of play for the team may have hampered him, but I'll let you guys make up your mind based on the information here. Thanks very much as always for watching. We'll be back later on with a team sheet tantrum. Love you lots, guys. Up the Villa. I hope we win tonight. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll talk more about it in the team sheet tantrum. Adios, amigos, and have a fantastic day.